here. There we go.
Yeah,
I
under
found it.
more.
There we go. Yep. Um, if you don't mind, I was going to start a little different this morning and just take about 3 minutes because I needed to get some input from people who have even more experience than I do. I was up in Colorado recently, and does that show a bowl in a plastic bag?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I was up in Buena Vista, and you can see all the trees behind it. They had thinned their forest out, and they had some beautiful pine that had been cut down just days before. And I took a piece home, and I made this for my nephew and his wife, um, just out of their tree. Went back about 7, 8 months later. We just got back here about 4 weeks ago, and his wife Nicole said that bowl is making noise. And I said, well, okay, hallucinations are a bad thing. What do you mean? She says, I hear a ticking noise. I think there are critters alive in the bowl. Anybody ever heard of such a thing? This is all it's pine beetle kill. Though not every one of these trees, I can't tell whether this tree was pine beetle infested or not after it was cut down. They were thinning the forest, so a lot of them were live trees, I assume. But no one has ever heard of that. Correct?
Bruce, it's possible. I haven't had the pine beetles, but I have seen some larvae inside of live turnings before. So it's possible there is a beetle in there somewhere.
Why doesn't she try microwaving it for about 1 minute several times during the day?
Well, I thought about that, and what I did with it is I stuck it in a here we go. I stuck it in the oven at 170 for an hour. And I haven't heard back from them at all. I haven't actually called her to ask if she's hearing sounds again, but that was a new one on me. I'd never heard of that. It did kind of mildly crap up the finish that I've just got to sand it down and give one more coat of finish. It didn't really hurt it badly, but that was strange. I did see one piece of old mesquite I had out in my firewood pile that a friend came by and wanted to make a rolling pin out of it. And in the midst of the rolling pin, he stopped it, and a worm crawled out one of the holes. That kind of freaked him out. So anyway, I just wondered what people's experience was with that. So that's where we're going with it.
I've had a lot of. In the oven, or do you freeze it?
I baked it at 170. I figure, nothing is going to survive that. And it's only a ½ inch thick. The heat would penetrate completely into the wood, just like it would a frozen lasagna or a piece of roast beef. Any thoughts on that method? I'm not sure if freezing actually kills it. In order to kill pine beetles in Colorado, they need 5 nights in a row of hard freeze. Hard freeze is usually down around 15 degrees. So you'd have to keep it in your freezer probably for days to actually kill these things.
The only similar experience I've had, Bruce, is when I have wet wood and I'm going to twice turn it, and then I microwave it for a minute, let it cool down to ambient, and then heat it for another minute, and do that for a couple of days. It takes the water out, and I'm sure that would kill anything in the wood.
I would too. That's what I would assume. All right, well, I'll give you a follow-up next month. I'll call her and ask her whether I suggested she have it right next to her bed and sleep with it, so that way it'd be very quiet and she could hear. And That kind of freaked her out a little bit. She wasn't going to do that.
Were there a bunch of holes in the wood, little tiny holes?
No.
If there are no holes in the bowl that are very visible, the cracking she's hearing is probably just the stresses coming out of the pine as it's drying. And I see that did you put the picture of the bowl back up? I see that the pith is still in or near the rim of the bowl, and that's going to crack from that point, probably right down through the bowl.
Yeah, you can see where as it did dry, cracks, those are filled with super glue.
Well, that's what she's hearing. That's what she is hearing. The wood stresses coming out of the wood.
Yeah, I would have thought I would have seen extensions of the cracks though. And those cracks were present when I turned it and actually gave it to him as a gift. But I agree with you. It's just kind of weird that it would be occurring 6 months later.
I have a whole collection of wood of pine full of holes that I actually captured some of the critters and put them in a plastic, like a butter dish type thing. And I actually fed them turning shavings from the pine, and I kept them watered, see how long I could keep them. And it was quite interesting watching them. My wife finally decided that she didn't want them around anymore and threw them in the garbage, but it was an interesting process. Watching them with their little, I don't know what they are, feelers or mouth or whatever, that they pull the little particles or the shavings in and munch on them.
Wow. All right. Well, anyway, I'm sorry. That's my humor corner for the morning. I'll let her know follow up that we don't think she's in danger of being taken over. I had just Ray, you were the only one that sent in pictures, and so I was going to start with yours. Gary Frank and I were talking about laminated pieces as opposed to segments, and I started looking through this, on the internet as topics and books that are written, and there's quite a bit, and I'm sure we've all seen, a lot of this. It's a great way of dealing with some excess wood. Let me get this one up here. And Ray, that was the first bowl you sent. If you want to talk about it a little bit.
Well, I enjoy doing laminations. Let me just start with that. But like you just mentioned, Bruce, it's a great way to join wood together to make scrap pieces of wood together to turn bowls. And this was actually one of my first laminations. It was just something I wanted to try, and my wife certainly enjoyed it and wouldn't let me sell it, so we've hung on to it. I don't know if I'm the only one that has done laminations like this. I guess.
Anybody else?
Well, the way I do the laminations, I have a surface plane, and I also have a drum sander, and I, use both of those to get the various pieces as flat as I possibly can. I use a steel straight edge and orient that along basically multiple directions on the both sides of the pieces. And when I get them all ready and get a design I like, I begin gluing. And one important thing if you're doing laminations is to have a lot of clamps. because one time I didn't get the lamination as flat as I wanted. And after I had it all glued up and turned, I held it up to the light, and I could see light coming through one of the lamination openings. So that's very discouraging.
I'm gonna get one of your other pieces up here. Forgive me a minute, yeah, Mark is having trouble getting in. I don't see him about to enter.
Well, Ray, that's a nice looking piece you showed there.
Thank you.
This is them. This is them. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I had a hell of a time getting in.
This particular piece, I think, is the second one I did, and I tried to be as careful as I could to get the thicknesses exactly right, particularly on the outside walnut pieces, because you don't want one side of the walnut to be thicker or thinner than the other side. So again, another one that my wife really liked, and I haven't been able to sell out. Get it away from her to sell that one either.
What's the other wood? That's walnut and
That's maple. The thin walnut pieces are the easiest ones to work with because I can get 1/4 inch thick walnut slabs at Home Depot, and those are always very nice and flat. I don't have to work much on those.
one of the questions I had with all this is, do you notice any ridging along the glue lines when you're turning or sanding just from different densities of wood?
No, I have not.
Okay. But you've probably never turned pine next to acacia or something like that, hard versus soft.
Actually, I've been very leery about turning any pine at all. I usually try to just, as much as I can, stick with hardwoods.
Let me
The only
guess.
time I've deviated from that, I turned a bowl that I didn't give you, Bruce, that had some padauk in it, and it actually gave it a really nice contrast.
I'm not sure. Hello? I have a picture here of some stuff that I did. I'll just reverse the phone so you can see it. But
Is that Bob?
yes, that's
Bob,
Can you-
why don't you hang on just a second? I've got two more of Ray's I was going to show. And your video's not on, Bob.
okay. Well, I'm not
Oh,
sure.
I'm sorry. There it is. There, I've got you on two different things. Sorry about
Okay.
that. Ray, why don't you keep going? I got one more picture beyond this.
Okay, this was a 3-wing bowl. We had a demo by a fellow, I think 2 years ago or so, named Jeff Neff, who did some did a demo on 3-winged bowls, and he also had some laminations there that he demonstrated, and so I thought I would give that a try. And this one's got some walnut, maple, and mesquite in it.
Do you notice, I think everybody can see my little arrow.
Yeah.
Is that a tiny bit of separation of the lamination right there? Or is that just a crack in the mesquite?
I think that's just a crack in mesquite,
Okay.
but I don't have that bowl anymore, so I really can't answer that.
All right. And there's one more you have here. Is that the Paduke in the center?
No, that's Purple Heart. So I've got mesquite, walnut, maple, and Purple Heart in that one.
I guess my only sad part of this is that all the chips that are lying on the floor of all that beautiful wood.
Yeah, that always hurts me.
Yeah, it's just, those are beautiful pieces. Anybody have any questions for Ray about what he did there?
Ray, I'm curious to know, you say you do run your pieces through a drum sander. Do you have any guidance on how to make sure you have very tight joints?
Well, as I say, I take a lot of care using a straight edge to make sure these lambs are as flat as I possibly can get them on both sides. When I'm gluing, I always use tight bond, and I'll glue a couple of pieces together, and I'll let them set for about maybe 5 or 10 minutes. I'll do the friction rubbing, and I'll let them sit for about 5 or 10 minutes without clamping because I don't want the glue to squeeze up. But then I'll really lay into them with clamps and get them as tight as I can, and then I'll add another piece to those two and repeat the process until I get them. But like I say, one time I screwed up and I got light coming through, and that really irritated me. But I Gary Frank mentioned a tip one time. He said he has a coffee bean grinder in his shop, and what I've done in the past is when I turn something, I pick up the chips and I stick them in the coffee grinder and I grind them down to a real fine texture, and I store those in little bottles. And if I find an opening, and like I said, it only happened one time, but I had some of the grindings and I was able to backfill with those, and it wasn't noticeable anymore that I had a flaw. That help you, Ken?
Yes, I think the important thing there is you don't try to assemble the whole assembly at one time and glue it up and clamp it. You do say a pairs at a time, and then keep adding from that.
Yeah,
And
and
that's part of the secret to keeping the joints really tight.
yeah, you just don't want to rush the process. There's nothing to be gained by hurrying through it.
When you're dealing with the flat boards, you're cleaning up the edges with a planer. I'm assuming the flat side, you're running through your drum sander.
But I use the plane to plane the top and bottom sides, not the edges, because once I get all the pieces all glued together, then I'll take them to my bandsaw and I'll cut a rough shape so that I can turn that then.
Oh, that's after everything's glued up.
Yes.
Yeah, after it all. I always find when I have flat boards, I can never make it perfect. What's your feeling about the use of extra arm muscle and pressure on the clamp solving tiny errors? You have any trouble with that?
It it can work if it's just a very mild unevenness, but again, I think it really helps to use a straight edge on the top and bottom surfaces and try to identify any rippling or any unevenness and get them out of there if you possibly can. But I do really crank down on the clamps once I'm pretty sure that I won't get any seeping out of the glue. I don't want all the glue to get squeezed out of the laminations.
Doesn't that create kind of a thick layer of glue if it's not squeezed out to some degree?
I'm sorry?
Doesn't that create a fairly thick layer of glue that is,
Bruce, I don't just, layer the glue on. I put the glue on and then I use a roller to make sure it's a pretty
thin it
thin
down?
layer. Yeah, pretty thin layer of glue. I don't want a thick layer on there.
And out of curiosity, are you using Tight Bond 1, 2, or 3?
I, I use two almost exclusively anymore.
So you get a little bit more time. Yeah, you don't use Tight
Yeah.
Bond 1. Yeah, that's tough to work with.
You know, another thing you can do is take a damp sponge and just wipe the wood before you put the glue on. It makes 3M suggested that in one of their videos.
Just to smooth it out.
It just
thin
gives
it.
the absorption.
That's a good idea. I have tried that.
Well, to show you the pictures of what I have laminated, it's very important.
Okay.
Well,
Hey, Ray, thank you. Thank you for those contributions. Those were beautiful pieces.
Thank you.
Bob, you want to go ahead and
Can
jump
you,
in?
can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Here,
That is
is there a
that
way?
is the beginning of the dizzy board. Now here's a cutting board that I did, but it's the same principle. But then this is the dizzy board. But the key to doing that is I just run those through my drum sander consistently all together and then glue them up. But you got to be careful with pressure because most glue manufacturers say do not over clamp. So
I think that's because of the possibility of squeezing out all the glue.
yes, and that's why dampening the wood first helps it get into it.
Interesting.
You know me, I love watching videos. In fact, I wish Mark would have been on today because I just spent about 4 hours learning about water lock.
Yeah. Mark texted me his internet's down, so that's why he's not joining us. Otherwise, he was going to be here.
Okay.
Jim, I'm curious. You say you dampen the wood before you put the glue on.
Yes.
What does that do?
It just opens up the pores.
It would do the opposite.
What?
I think it would do the opposite. Wouldn't the water make the wood swell?
No, not. You're not soaking. You're just barely. It's almost
I-
like wiping dust off. It's almost like when you do it before you're sanding or while you're sanding. You know, I just sent a deal to Bob Saboot this morning about sanding with popping the grain. But it doesn't swell it. It just opens the grain up.
Hey, Zim,
Yes.
you're signed on through two different devices and you've got the audio on both of them. You ought to mute one of them.
Well, I was iPhone 2. Let me shut this off. And I didn't know if it had come through.
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, my computer wasn't working in the shop, so it must have clicked in while I was talking.
Yeah.
But anyhow, no, I've been doing that dampening ever since we had at that place that Rick always tells me I can't say. But we had a guy come out from 3M and show us a bunch of different stuff. And that was one of their recommendations.
You know, after last month when we were talking about finishes and Mark was talking about that water locks, I was reading about its application and they recommend wiping your pieces down with ethyl alcohol, 95% ethyl alcohol.
That or mineral spirits, because mineral spirits is what you clean it up with. but you got to be really careful. Unfortunately, Dave Henderson got me stuck on Copilot. So now my new best friend is Copilot, and that they've got more information than you can use. But I just spent like 4 hours watching videos and that, and I'm on the second phase of how to finish with waterlock. And some of the stuff that Mark had said when I talked to him about it, they don't recommend. So and I even went on the waterlock site and read theirs because there's 3 different waterlock in that. So I wish I would have got in on that finishing, but we'll find out because I just got the second coat on this morning and they say 3 to 5 coats, but there's 24 hours. But I'm going to bring the piece Saturday anyhow, just to show where I'm at the process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But
Dave,
the other thing you might also, when you're gluing like larger surfaces, you can use salt. You can use sandpaper, just taking 2 pieces of sandpaper and putting that grit in to keep the things from moving. They don't recommend using the sandpaper grit if you're going to be running it through like a sander or a planer because that could affect your blades or your sandpaper. So salt, actually, I've had really good luck with just sprinkling table salt as you're putting it on, and make sure you spread the glue out thin before you do it. But everybody says thin glue on both sides is better than thick glue on one side.
and I'm assuming all that salt solubilizes before
Yeah,
it's finished so that you're really not seeing any crystals or anything afterwards. It's all
you
gone.
have absolutely no trace. It
Yeah.
dissolves
Yeah.
right in.
Real fine table salt should be no problem.
Yeah.
I gotta
Yep.
write
Hey,
that one down.
Bruce.
Yep.
I need to hit the road, but I was going to send you some pictures, and I thought, well, I didn't know if I was going to be on or not. So if I will turn my camera around and I'll show you some pieces. The thing about these pieces is these were made over 50 years ago in high school shop. I haven't done much laminating since then, but I think I was ahead of my time.
Chuck, let me just make a quick comment to everybody.
Yeah.
Is everybody going to speaker view up in the gallery? Because then you can see these and you're not on the thumbnails. Does everybody know where speaker view is? There's at the very top, there's a little box with 3 dots above it. If you click on that and hit speaker, it'll enlarge everything for you.
I'm trying to find the setting to turn my camera around.
Bruce, there's another way for you to do that as the host. You can highlight an individual. But in speaker view, if somebody or if there's a noise from one of the other participants, it'll automatically go to that person. But you as a host can select, I can't remember the function now, but you can highlight it for everyone.
Yeah, there's something now called dynamic gallery. Did that change everybody else's view? It enlarged everything.
That
Okay.
only affects you, Bruce.
Okay, yeah. Well, for today, we'll kind of research that a little bit. If you go to speaker view, it'll enlarge everything quite a bit so you can see.
All right. This is probably, I don't know if you can, it took a couple weeks to glue up, starting with an octagon that was then cut to then get that cross in the middle. And then there were laminated pieces that were cut to go on each edge. And so that was my major foray in high school into laminating. And there's the famous felt that we all did in high school, right? So you can kind of even see the pattern a little bit more on there. Lots of end grain, obviously. I didn't know any better. This was something that I thought I'd give a try. Walnut, oak, and plexiglass. This is prior to resin. I don't know what happened to my piece of felt, but I guess it came off. And if you can definitely feel the ridge between the oak and the plexiglass because the oak moved, plexiglass didn't. And this is back when all we had was high-speed steel, and that plexiglass did not turn real easily. I was continually sharpening, but that was just something I was trying different. I used epoxy to glue the plexiglass to the wood, but this was another one starting with the octagon, and then just each side of the octagon has 3 layers on it. So that was major, one glue a day for a couple weeks to finally get that done. Oh, there's our famous felt again. I did one of these recently, but instead of doing it this way, I glued those 3 pieces of wood together and then created segments from them. So they didn't overlap the way these do. But that was my first try to make circles. It was critical for thickness. As you can see, there were some variations in thickness of my laminations, so that kind of changed the process. And I don't think I had it perfectly centered, so you can see the inside circles are different sizes. Oh, and there's some dust in there too. And then finally, this one is more, there's a pair of them. This was more of attempting off-center turning, but prior to doing that, I did some laminations just to make it a little more interesting. This is cherry and oak, and obviously not a lot of difference as the wood has aged significantly. But yeah, these were probably early 1970s, these 3 pieces. So that's the only lamination I think I've done. Any questions?
Do you remember why you put the felt on the bottom?
Yes, because the only way we knew how to do this was with face plates, and we always screwed the face plate into a block, and that block was glued to the major blank with a piece of brown paper in between so you could split it off. We didn't know anything about parting, and that was, you can actually even see, was it on this one? You can still see the little 3 screw holes that went through my block, and the little bit of paper still on there. So that's why I did that. We didn't know any better.
You didn't
Well,
have any?
I'd say you had a pretty amazing high school shop instructor.
I did. Ray, he did join us for one of our meetings. I've been in touch with him, just spoke with him the other day. He was quite the inspiration.
Yeah, I remember that meeting.
Yeah. So he's in his late 80s and not doing any wood turning or anything like that, but he still fun to talk to. He became a good friend.
Well, they're not quite old enough, but you're getting close to museum pieces.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know. Yes. And when my name is famous
Yep.
as a turner, those will go into my exhibit as early works.
Well, just to get the history that, people didn't know how to part or do anything else, the development of tools. That's a great little story.
Yeah. No chucks. It was all faceplate.
Okay. Dave and Chuck, if you need to take off, just whenever.
Okay. I'm going to go off camera so that I can continue to. I figured it was time to start packing.
Dave, you're up.
Okay, I'm going to just show these beside my picture, but this is a piece of walnut that I needed and didn't have anything big enough, so I laminated one, two, three, four pieces of 2-inch stuff to get something large enough to do this test. And my wife likes round bottom bowls, so this is a round bottom bowl. And then it is turned on a different axis and becomes a bowl in a bowl. And I had to laminate wood to get the piece big enough to do it. And then more recently, I got into stack laminating Baltic birch plywood. And I just mostly wanted to see how the laminations turned out with the color variation. And it's interesting, but it is absolutely a killer on tools. I tried coloring, and I didn't choose my colors. I just grabbed and spread, and that was how it turned out. Not particularly fond of it, but I was getting rid of some of the Baltic birch scraps. And while I was experimenting, I decided to stack laminate the material used on roofs. Basically just pressed sawdust. It's not particle board, it's wafer board. And got a rude awakening on this because I got it all finished. And it was sitting on my lathe, and I was headed to the tent to spray it. And I picked it up by the top, and it came apart about right here. The glued laminations did not come apart. The middle of the wafer board did not have much glue in it, and it just pulled apart. So if anybody thinks it's fun to do one of those, don't waste your time. And then I saw something a long time ago in China, and this is about 18, 20 inches tall. And it had rings of, they were either chiseled in rock or they were beads added or something, but there were rings going up the piece of art. Was in a museum. It was like, I don't know, 1 million years old. It was old. And I remembered that shape. So I wanted to do something, but I didn't want to waste a good piece of wood. So I stack laminated Baltic birch. And that was quite an experiment because I didn't want to use my good tools on it. So I decided to use some of their high-speed steel tools, but they were older ones, probably the M2, M4 variety. And cutting that edge of that plywood just ate the tools alive. So I finally ended up, to get a decent finish, I ended up using my good tools, and had to sharpen often, and I couldn't get done with that project quick enough.
Dave, did you hollow the inside as you were going up with the layers, or is that inside just drilled?
No, they're all of them were hollowed, and I did it in 2 pieces. I hollowed half and then laid up the other half and hollowed it. But they're all hollowed and uniform sidewalls.
Okay.
That's part of the reason the wafer board came apart, because the wall thickness was It's probably less than a quarter, probably 3/16 to a quarter. And that small amount on the rings, again, where I glued it, they stayed together, where I glued two pieces together, but it's separated right in the middle of the wafer board because they didn't use much glue.
Dave, can you talk about finishing those pieces? I mean, how much sanding did you have to do? I've tried to work with that stuff in the past, and as you go through the different pieces of grain, it just was kind of a nightmare.
Well, you cannot sand much because on the plywood, especially the way they laminate the plywood together when they make it, you have constantly all the way up the side your side grain, end grain, side grain, end grain, different degrees of end grain, different degrees of side grain. So if you try sanding it, it comes out really rough. So you have to you have to get a pretty flat surface with your cutting tools. And one of the things that I did I think it was on the tall one, I was getting so frustrated trying to get a good clean cut. I think what I ended up doing was, and this was before I saw the Japanese lady, but I was impressed with her, that they did a lot of scraping with scrapers. And I used just a standard cabinet scraper to scrape smooth after I cut it as smooth as I could, if that makes sense. So now, since I've seen the Japanese lady a couple times now, I've investigated her tools, and I started making some tools like she was using. And I have found that there are good applications for them because you're basically just taking a piece of hard steel, like a bandsaw blade or the old blades used on the power hacksaws before they had the circular horizontal bandsaws. Those blades have excellent steel in them. I don't know what it is, but it's good. And if you can grind your shape and then carefully so you don't heat the steel too much, and then do the I guess you'd call it honing, and put the burr on it, and then use that burr to scrape the flatness instead of trying to sand it. And once you hit it with sandpaper, you get the hard part that doesn't sand and the soft part that all goes away. And so you get a real lumpy finish.
Can I just show you guys something that I have done? This is actually 3 orientations of plywood. You'll notice the bottom one, the plywood it takes a lot of laminating, but then this is just natural. Then this is on its side again, like the top. This took a while because that's about 5, 6 pieces, so you can get them big enough to segment them. But I've never had any problem sanding this. I just start with like 80, 120 and go through lightly sanding it at probably 150, 200 RPMs. And just work through the grits. So I don't know. This is Baltic birch that I got from one of my neighbors who substitute teaches in California, not one weekend a year or so, but he brings back all the scrap that they throw away and gives it to me. So I don't know. I've never had any issues with it. doing anything funny, so don't know. But this is what happens here when you're sanding it on its side. And I've brought a couple pieces to the meetings that I've done big tall vases, candlestick holders, and that. Um, the only issue I had is one time trying to do this one on a tall vase. I went to put India ink in it, and the whole thing fell apart. And it wasn't the glue; it was the wood just came apart. So, but that's just a moisture issue. So that's my experience with Baltic birch.
Has anybody ever tried to go the other way? I've seen some pieces on the internet where instead of sanding or making it smooth, they used a wire brush on a drill to enhance that difference between soft and hard wood. Anybody ever try that with Baltic birch?
Yes, if you're stack laminating it where you've got all the multiple, it gives a really strange texture
Yeah.
because it's not uniform anywhere.
Well,
Bruce,
there's
I've wire brushed, but it wasn't lamination. It was on Russian olive, and it has a hard and soft grain. And I wire brushed it, and it gave a very nice three-dimensional surface to it. But it was not a lamination. I would assume the same thing happens with the plywood.
Well, if you're on a standard piece of tree or a standard board, gives a beautiful texture, and it's a uniform texture and it's gorgeous. If you do that with the laminated plywood, the Baltic birch, they don't lay their laminations the same. So as they go up with their laminations, they change the direction of them so that each little line in your lamination is, some places it gives you a nice hard versus soft uniform shape, and some places it does not.
This is a piece of just standard hem-fir beam that I played with doing that with a wire brush and also burning it. So I'm going to have to try the plywood. I've never, because I have got so much crap plywood laying around that Mike gives me that I'll have to start trying and see what that's like.
You know, there are so many different varieties of plywood also. And the true, a little bit older, good Baltic birch is uniform. If you take a newer piece of plywood or a piece of just birch plywood, or a piece of, even if you get the 11 ply, the real thin plies of plywood, they still have the wood on the inside is not always good. And there are so many different varieties of it. And anymore, you can buy stuff they call Baltic birch because they put a birch surface on the sides, but the inside is not necessarily birch. So makes a difference on what you're using. This stuff I got from a place that was using nothing but the top best quality of birch that they could buy, and I thought it would produce some good results. And I guess you could determine looking at it, if you like it, it's good results. If not, I'd basically considered most of that a waste of my time and tools. I definitely shortened my tools.
Dave, have you ever tried the Spectra ply?
Oh yeah.
Because that's high quality core.
Yeah, but it's usually layered. It's layered in if you were making a stack lamination out of 1x4s, they would be, all running the grain the same direction.
Well, have you ever seen how they make plywood though? So that's why it's the way it is.
Absolutely. I've been in probably a dozen plywood plants.
Yeah, so when they're peeling them off, they just cross laminate them and stuff. But yeah, that's why you have little voids in that. Even in the best plywood that I've ever worked with, you still have little voids because of knots and
No,
other
if you're talking plywood, yes, you're absolutely correct. If you're talking Baltic birch plywood, then they do not have voids. If you get the high quality stuff, you can peel that apart and you won't find a void anywhere, not even a tiny knot.
Is that what they sell down at Woodworkers Source, Baltic birch?
at 100 and
Well,
something a sheet.
Because I have
there are
purchased some of that and I've unfortunately found some voids.
Yeah, there are different, it's just like anything else that you buy. If you go buy something, you buy a car, you buy anything, and then it's going to be if it's popular, it's going to be duplicated, and the people that duplicate it cut corners to get the price down and sell more of them. So, and that's happened with Baltic birch. The old good stuff is, if you can find it, it's still void free. If you buy anything that says Baltic birch on it, it's not necessarily void free.
Yeah. Okay.
And Bruce, this, if we take a minute, this is something that I did at a class down, and this is all laminated together, if you can see that.
Can you adjust the screen? The bowl itself is out of focus. Your face is in focus. There, hold it against
Yeah,
your chest.
let me do it. I might have it on there where it's auto focusing. So let me see.
Yeah.
Take your background blur
Rick, you
off.
also need to turn off the blur in Zoom.
Okay, yeah. Let me do that if
That's
I
just
can.
Rick. He's always blurred.
Just
Watch yourself, big boy.
Rick, just kind of move beside and put there you go.
That's it.
But there's a lot of lamination in there, including some of these knots, etc. And that was all done with regular type on. And a lot of these cuts were right off the table saw. I had no problems putting them together. It started out at about 1.25 inch piece of material. And you can see it's the platter there.
So Rick, you're saying they're just off the table saw. You didn't have to run any of that through a drum sander to get nice tight joints?
No, did some on the joiner though, Ken. But the joints were not an issue. And you can see even where I had angular pieces going like this. But it took several glue ups. It was over 5 separate glue ups to get all of it together. Not counting these little pieces here that were glued up prior to putting them in there. That was a strip that was cut off of a block. But that was a lot. That's a lot of gluing together.
I've seen that one in person, and it's very, very well done. It's an excellent.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. Yeah, I've had it a couple times.
Yeah.
But that guy came, and I can't remember his name, but he actually did a demo at one of our meetings. What was it, 1.5 or 2 years ago, I think. He wanted to come back, but his demo was probably not as good as it should have been.
Well, one thing, if you're running things through the table saw and then you're going to glue them together and you don't have a joiner, cut it strong about 1/8 or 1/16 of an inch with your initial cut, then run it back through, and it'll give you a nice, smooth, perfect edge with no burn marks. So
No, there were no burn marks on it.
yeah. Well, if you got a good sharp saw, a good blade, you won't get that.
Yeah, it was a cabinet blade, you know, it was what,
80.
80 tooth?
Yeah, yeah. See, and most people don't run that fine a blade on a table saw because you're doing a lot of ripping. But for doing things like that, it works.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick.
Yep.
Beautiful piece.
Thank you.
I'll offer one piece here just because it was a little bit different in how I made it. It's a very simple piece. But this was laminated kind of after the turning. You have to make it upside down so that this is Wangi and Bubinga. Turning these two pieces are laminated, and then it's actually turned, and then you laminate it onto the bottom piece. It was kind of a fun thing to do because everybody always, I'll bring it on Saturday. Everybody always wants to put their fingers down in our pieces. We all know to do that. And it creates this nice sharp edge inside down here, wondering, how do you do it? And you just laminate it after you've turned it. So it was just a fun little box to make. Took a couple hours and just a couple of simple laminations.
I have a question for everybody, and how do they deal with bleeding of wood when they laminate it together? I know it has a lot to do with the choice of wood, but
the only thing I've ever had that works is spraying lacquer or actually just putting shellac on first before you start sanding. That's 60% of the time that'll help.
Yeah, Rick, I tend to use shellac also. I make my own shellac.
like a sanding sealer type of shellac and alcohol or denatured alcohol, and
Dena-
then
Denatured alcohol.
yeah, okay, all right.
Rick, I think this is what you're talking about. I made another one of these pieces, and the Wenge became my sanding sealer on the maple. And it's kind of an interesting effect, but it was very frustrating trying to finely sand between those edges. And I was not smart enough to use any sealer before it. And I took the picture this way because you can see on where it kind of hit end grain, where the Wenge is really stained into it. And there's no way to get it out.
Mm-hmm.
Wingate's tough on every aspect.
Yeah.
Actually, I was doing mine with bloodwood when I did my segmented bowl, and I stupidly put holly right next to it. That doesn't work well.
Well, Paduke's really bad for that too.
You cook a bowl up, they're all.
Yeah. Anything red.
All right. Does anybody else have any pictures or pieces to show us? Now I just kind of wish we had Kathy's camera on so we could see the quilt. Oh, she's gonna bite. She might turn it on.
Oh,
Kathy, you need your microphone on too.
Okay, best I can do. It's huge. It's like 104 by 104, and it has a kaleidoscope up back to it.
Gorgeous.
That's
I love
nice,
it.
Kathy.
Love it.
But it's huge. So I'm hand sewing about 400 inches around it, and it's taking a long time, but one of my friends says that's called bonding with your quilt. So, but it will be in the quilt show that's going to be the end of May. So I have to finish it.
You're gonna have
Hold
trouble
it up again.
finding
I
a
missed
quilt
that.
stand that big.
Say again, Rick?
You're gonna have trouble finding a quilt stand that big. 100 and Jamie just did one that's 108, and she couldn't get a quilt stand that was long enough to put the quilt on after they put the sleeve on it.
Oh,
Too bad
well,
she doesn't know a woodworker.
they've already planned for that. Yeah, they've already planned for that. They have
Okay.
all the numbers for how big the quilts are, and then they build the stands based on the sizes. So anyway,
Kathy, hold it
lots
up
of work.
again. I missed it. Sorry.
It's
It's out of the
okay.
room.
See if I can.
Wow. That is
Yeah.
incredible. Good work.
Very impressive.
Thank you.
Very, very. Wow.
You want to help me hold it? Okay, Ken's gonna come help me hold it, and we'll see if we can. We'll see if we can hold it. It's huge.
Can you point your camera down?
Okay. It's across here. We'll see if this works.
Oh, yeah, that'll do.
Pretty good, yeah.
Oh my God, Kathy, that
Holy
is just
cow.
Thank
spectacular.
you. Thank you, but I like the kaleidoscope effect of it, and I like the
Definitely.
colors. So this is one I made for us. I usually give everything away, so this
Yeah.
one is mine.
I was about to say, Ken, do you get first rights of refusal?
Well, the quilt frame for this happens to be our bed. So
There you
we'll
go.
both be using
I
it for
got
a
it.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm almost done. I only have like 80 inches left, so I'm good. But thanks for asking, appreciate it. And thanks for all the comments on laminating. I think I want to try it a little bit more. I have some thin pieces that can't be turned unless they're laminated, so we'll see what happens. Thanks, Bruce, for the comment.
All right, well,
No,
thanks
that's
for
fine like
showing,
that.
for sharing.
Oh, I would think Gary Frank's wave bowls would be considered a lamination.
They are,
Yeah.
They
they
are,
most
yeah.
definitely are.
Yeah.
And Kathy, you and I have done laminations. We didn't realize it.
Yeah, the wave bowls are fun to make. I enjoy it. I'd like to do it again.
I consider it lamination if you glued two pieces together, but it's not segmenting. Segmenting is kind of its own form of lamination.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah. Oh, they're stored away right now.
well, as we get to the end, I always ask if
Yeah.
people have a recommendation for next month. Some people have suggested going back to some old topics and things that were even simple. Every month I'm hoping to get some of our newer members, and
You
I've
do
been
it.
I've been talking it up at the meetings, but with the new members trying to meet them, but we haven't gotten anybody to really dive into this yet. Some of the topics that I did attend in the past was just going back and revisiting sanding. Is that interesting, of new products and types and procedures? I've been looking at some YouTube videos, and I've been learning a lot that I didn't know that has really helped.
I think that's good. I think another one that is worth repeating is what's new in your shop? What have you done to your shop to make it better that we all can learn from?
Okay, there's two suggestions. Any others?
I think
How
Dan
about,
Holm needs to show his hand
we-
carving.
Oh, how Dan mixes his carving in with his turning.
Anybody can do it.
Anybody can do it. Oh, and how about we do a session about alabaster? Everyone can bring all their alabaster turnings.
No.
That'd be a pretty short session.
That'd be a pretty short session. I just
Okay.
finished another one. I'll bring it a week from Tuesday.
All right, I'll keep alabaster in mind for when I'm traveling. Okay, so
Yeah.
that'll just be 5 minutes and we're done.
Yeah.
All right, I'll consider those. And it's Once again, I learned so much every time I do this. So thank you for everybody who put in some comments today.
All righty, we'll see you.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
everybody. Have a
Thanks,
nice
Bruce.
weekend.
Bye.
Bye.
Bruce, can you
Travel
hold on for
safe,
just a
Chuck.
minute for me?
All right, thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah,
If I can
stay
give
on.
you a call on the phone.
You want me to just stay on here on Zoom?
I can just, well, I have a comment about, yeah, are you off? Stop recording and we'll do it
Okay. Oh, hang on.
offline.